All right. Welcome, José James, everyone.
What's up, everybody? Good morning.
Good morning. You are tuned into Morning Becomes Eclectic on 89.9 KCRW, here with José James, musician, storyteller, genre-defying singer for the hip-hop generation and beyond. I first heard of José James via the incredible cover of Park Bench People, originally by MC Micah 9 from Freestyle Fellowship, LA-based hip-hop group.
Legend.
Thank you for returning to KCRW. You've played in KCRW's basement, at Apogee, private members only events. Welcome back. We're so happy to be here together on Morning Becomes Eclectic.
Thank you. It's an honor. KCRW is my favorite radio station in the world. You know what I mean? Right?
Mine too. All right, so let's get into it. We're celebrating 1978. It is the name of your album. It is your 12th album. It is also the year you were born. So I wanted to dive into what the inspiration for the title of your record. Obviously, you were born in that year, but what also stands out for you?
I'm fascinated by that era because so many different things were happening in music. You know, I think like you, I'm a deep music nerd. Like I love to crate dig and do research. And, you know, you had all these jazz musicians who had survived the 40s, 50s, 60s, transforming into other things. You know, you look at Quincy Jones, who started as a jazz trumpet player playing bebop and swing. And then he's producing, you know, the Brothers Johnson. He's producing Michael Jackson. He's moving R&B into this new way with jazz harmony that had never been done before. You have, you know, disco, which was at its sort of apex,
Right.
which about to transform into hip hop. So there's this kind of cool tension. You had this amazing club scene all over the world. You had the rise of reggae, Bob Marley and the Wailers. You had this new wave, you know, Talking Heads, Blondie. You had, you know, legends like James Taylor, Elton John. You know, Carole King still writing incredible stuff, you know, Billy Joel. And then you had punk starting too. So it was like this cool moment of, and then in jazz, you know, you had Herbie Hancock and this beautiful fusion, Carlos Santana. So I think it was one of the freest moments in American music, actually, because everything was about the band. Everything was about getting it done live to tape, recording in a room, regardless of the genre. That's why everything feels so, to me, like urgent and warm, and it was political.
Right.
And it was like people making a statement, you know?
Yeah. That's amazing. There's so many levels and layers to it. And definitely like when there's a shift in sound, you know? 1978 took 5 years to complete. That means that the process of the record also went through the pandemic, like all of us.
Yeah.
So how was that? How did that affect the process of making this record?
Well, the first song I wrote was here in LA, actually. And it's the song that became For Trayvon. And I think, you know, having that time to slow down and process some difficult things, you know, I think we all went through that. And certainly, you know, as a Black man, as a father, the death of Trayvon Martin was very heavy, you know, and at that time I was touring a tribute to Billie Holiday, so I was singing Strange Fruit back then. And so it was very current for me. You know, jazz has always felt very current for me. So I started with that, and I was like, okay, this is actually a serious record, you know. And then that transformed into 38th in Chicago. It's the same chords, but with a Latin ding, ding, gung, gung, ding, ding underneath it, you know?
So good.
Thank you.
So good.
So then I'm like, oh, Marvin Gaye, you know, and it kind of expanded from there. But for me, the core of it was always this sort of like serious, you know, like, you know, James Baldwin, you know, Toni Morrison in the back of my head. I was like, okay, this is coming from a deep place.
Yeah, for sure. They were in the room when you were writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So as well as them being in the room, there were other people in the room. There were Marvin Gaye, Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson, and you're from Minneapolis. So
born and raised. Most people don't know that.
That said, Prince your relationship to Prince. And being that his first record came out in 1978.
Exactly.
So he was in the room. And in what ways do you think your connection to him, being that you're from the same place?
Well, I mean, obviously his love of jazz and his full embrace of funk, you know, his encyclopedia of funk, you know, it's like incredible. I think one underrated thing about Prince that we don't talk about is his love of fantasy and his ability as a black man to transform himself in a way that like someone like David Bowie did too.
Yeah.
But I feel like as artists of color, we don't necessarily give ourselves that permission all the time. Certainly not in that time. And he's Prince, you know, he was like, yeah, he arrived fully formed in some crazy way. He was a huge inspiration as a kid. You know, he looked like me. He was from the same city. His dad also was a jazz musician. So I was like, okay, this is the guy, you know?
Yeah. Definitely a light in the room for sure. And I sat with 1978, beautiful record, but it definitely takes us on a deep ride spiritually, romantically. It's heavy on the production. And I did notice that Talia, your wife, Talia?
Talia. Yeah.
You know, I always got to spice it up and make it some Portuguese sounding thing.
Right.
But she also wrote on this album and also helps run your label, Rainbow Blonde Records. Have you two worked together on an album in this capacity? Or
That's a good question. Well, she's the president of the label. She started it, co-founded it. And on this album, she's like a quadruple threat. She wrote half the album. She performs on it. She arranged the strings.
That part.
Yeah.
What a magical wizard.
I know. Along with Ben Williams, who's here today.
Yeah.
He did For Trayvon, and she did all the other ones. And she also did vocal arrangements. You know, we started collaborating in 2014 when I was working on my second Blue Note album, While You Were Sleeping. And she's been responsible for basically all my hits, all my best stuff. Songs like Live Your Fantasy, you know, collaboration with Molly Music, To Be With You, on Love in a Time of Madness. So we've written together, I think, across like 5 albums now, and it's kind of built from there. Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful record.
Thank you.
Thank you. You'll be back in LA performing live September 12th. 2024 at the Lodge Room in Highland Park. We're looking forward to that.
Me too.
But right now, we get to hear you live on KCRW doing tunes from your new album, 1978. And we're very excited for that. Everybody put your hands together. This is Morning Becomes Eclectic.
Thank you, Wyldeflower. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Wyldeflower here with José James live on 89.9 KCRW. Let's get into it. 1978, y'all. Let's go.
Let's do it.